ECOWAS Commission President Dr. Toure calls for stronger collaboration among member states as the organization celebrates its Golden Jubilee.
Let us recommit to an ECOWAS of the people, where peace, prosperity, and justice are not just ideals but lived reality. Let us recommit to deepening integration, to building inclusive economies, and to advancing the African continental free trade area through regional leadership.
Nigeria National Assembly sets a 2-week review period of President Tinubu's request for external borrowing of $21.5 billion. Senegal begins national consultation on political reform.
The
President of the Republic has extreme excessive power. The executive branch dominates the legislative branch, dominates the judiciary, and dominates the political life. It is this exorbitant power of the President of the Republic that poses a problem in its functioning of the state.
And the Liberian government launches historic national digital health insurance scheme for vulnerable citizens. Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. This edition opens in Lagos, Nigeria, where a high-level celebration is ongoing as the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, celebrates its 50th anniversary today, May 28. Lagos is the very city where ECOWAS funding treaty was signed on this same day in 1975, marking a landmark movement for West African unity. This ongoing celebration brings together heads of state, diplomats, and representatives from across West Africa. WADR's Sankule Janko is currently in Lagos following the event and brings us the details.
As this remarkable event unfolds here in Lagos, the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Toure, just spoke out, emphasizing the progress made over the past 5 decades. He highlighted achievements such as the establishment of ECOWAS passport, advancements in regional trade and peacekeeping efforts across conflict zones in West Africa, among others.
In these 5 decades, our community has made remarkable strides. We have facilitated free movement across borders. We have advanced interregional trade, implemented a common external tariff. We have laid the groundwork for a single currency, built a regional electricity market, and extended digital connectivity across borders. We have stood together in the face of epidemics, insecurity, and natural disaster, offering humanitarian support and strengthening healthcare and food systems.
However, the ECOWAS Commission President also acknowledged persistent challenges, including political instability, insecurity, economic disparities within the region.
The challenges we face today, terrorism, climate change, unconstitutional change of government, poverty, and economic disparity are formidable, but so too is our collective resolve.
At the same time, Dr. Toure stressed the urgent need for stronger collaboration among member states to uphold democratic principles and respond to growing threats like terrorism and climate change.
Let us recommit to an ECOWAS of the people, where peace, prosperity, and justice are not just ideals but lived reality. Let us recommit to deepening integration, to building inclusive economies, and to advancing the African continental free trade area through regional leadership. Let us recommit to fostering democracy and good governance, and to defending the rights and dignity of every West African citizen. As we look to the next 50 years, let us dream boldly and act courageous. The future of ECOWAS must be brighter, greener, and more inclusive and more secure.
This ongoing celebration brings together heads of state, diplomats, and representatives from across West Africa. This meeting, themed Stronger Together for a Brighter Future, the central highlight of the commemoration will be the declaration reaffirming commitment to the aspirations of the founding fathers, emphasizing unity, economic integration, and regional peace, core ideals that have guided ECOWAS for half a century. From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Sankule Janko.
Meanwhile, as ECOWAS Commission clocks 50 years of existence today, discussions are ongoing about the successes and challenges of the regional bloc. Concerns are also being raised about the future of ECOWAS and its new plans for the sub-region. Marie Josan Ngai, the Francophone project coordinator with Wadr's network, shares with WADR the progress and obstacles that confront the regional bloc in the areas of good governance and democracy, while proposing measures to ensure sustained gains.
The regional body has gone through a lot. We can say some successes, but also some challenges in promoting democracy and good governance. We can talk about its effort in conflict mediation and peacekeeping. ECOWAS has played a critical role in conflict resolution in Liberia, Sierra Leone, in Côte d'Ivoire. Over the years, it facilitated peace processes and helped establish democratic governance post-conflict. And the ECOWAS standby force is one of the notable success in ensuring security in times of crisis and political instability in the region. In my opinion, as a regional body, ECOWAS has certain challenges. It can be attributed to several key factors. The fact that ECOWAS is unable to respond to some of those crises. And I think one of the first reason is limited enforcement mechanism.
Marie Josan Ngai is the Francophone project coordinator with Wadr's network. Still in Nigeria, the National Assembly has set 2 weeks to review President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's external borrowing request of more than $20 billion. The request, according to a presidential note, aimed at financing critical projects across various sectors of the economy, particularly infrastructure, health, education, security, and water supply. President Tinubu's $21.5 billion request has, however, been referred to the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debts for further legislative action. As Imo Edit tells us, Tinubu's request will cover costs for the 2025-2026 fiscal year.
The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, read Tinubu's request on the floor of the Red Chamber during plenary on Tuesday. While this is not the first request by the presidency since its inception on May 29, 2023, Tinubu says the current borrowing is intended to address critical issues and close the financial gap in key sectors. Godswill Akpabio explains.
Distinguished Senate is invited to note that the 2025 to 2026 borrowing plan cut across all sectors with specific emphasis on infrastructure, agriculture, health, education, water supply, growth, security, and employment generation, as well as financial management reforms, amongst others.
The head of state under the current plan seeks approval for $21.5 billion, 2.2 billion euros, 15 billion Japanese yen, and a 65 billion euros grant. A report is expected in 2 weeks from the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debts charged with reviewing the request. But across social and mainstream media, a majority of Nigerians are not pleased with this development. In the argument, the presidency ought to have regained financial autonomy after implementing economic policies such as fuel subsidy removal and increased tax generating platforms. They ask if this is a good decision or a risky move by President Tinubu as the country's public debt has increased in recent years. According to the Nigeria's Debt Management Office, DMO, as of 31st of December 2024, Nigeria's total public debt stood at approximately $94.2 billion.
Imo Edit reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Right here in Senegal, the National Dialogue on Political Reform begins this Wednesday. Convened by Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, these consultations, which brings together key stakeholders from across the nation, aim to thoroughly diagnose the flaws in Senegal's political system. Several points have been addressed, including the issue of sponsorship, the status of the opposition and its leader, and the reduction in the number of political parties. Abdoulaye Hassan completes the story.
These consultations on the Senegalese political system are being held at the Abdou Diouf International Conference Center in Diamniadio. Initiated by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, the dialogue aims to modernize and improve the Senegalese electoral system. The discussions focus on three main areas. First, democracy, freedoms and human rights. Second, the electoral process, and finally, institutional reforms. For Mamadou C. Albert, a political analyst, the flaws plaguing the Senegalese political system are numerous.
Le président de la République, il a un pouvoir extrême.
The President of the Republic has extreme excessive power. The executive branch dominates the legislative branch, dominates the judiciary, and dominates the political life. It is this exorbitant power of the President of the Republic that poses a problem in its functioning of the state. The second problem now is the political party. The head of state, as a party leader, is one of the sources of the malleus in the functioning of the Senegalese democratic system. A third issue that seems important to me is the democratic life. Senegal has an electoral democracy. It only exists during major electoral periods, mainly legislative and presidential election. But outside these two periods, there is no real democratic life.
Many political parties and movements, including some in the opposition such as Amadou Ba's New Responsibility, Khalifa Sall's Tahaou Senegal, and Anta Babacar Ngom's ARC, Arctic Revolutionary Movement, have confirmed their participation in the political dialogue. Other political parties have simply boycotted the dialogue, such as Macky Sall's Republican Party of Senegal, APR. Officials of the main opposition party have denounced the numerous arrests in its ranks since the new authorities came to power.
Abdoulaye Hassan Fight that report. The presidential election in Côte d'Ivoire will be held on October 30th this year. And for the occasion, West Africa Democracy Radio is organizing a forum on democracy and government this Wednesday in Abidjan. The event is themed Consolidating Democratic Processes, How to Prepare Côte d'Ivoire for a Peaceful Presidential Election. Christopher Aticho has more in this report.
This forum brings together civil society activists, electoral and international relations experts in Abidjan, as well as political scientists, academics, youth and women groups. In collaboration with the National Endowment for Democracy (NED), West Africa Democracy Radio intends to play its part in efforts to achieve peace during the presidential election in Côte d'Ivoire. For West Africa Democracy Radio, Côte d'Ivoire, which will go to the polls next October, must be able to vote in peace, free from any form of electoral violence, before, during and after the polls, and remain calm to pursue its national development. This forum, which WADR is organizing, therefore aims to fulfill the role of independent media to inform, but also to educate and mobilize citizens for democratic and peaceful participation.
Christopher, teacher, with that report. You are still listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS Commission President Dr. Touré calls for stronger collaboration among member states as the organization celebrates its Golden Jubilee. Nigerian National Assembly sets a 2-week review period of President Tinubu's request for extended borrowing of $21.5 billion. Senegal begins national consultation on political reform. Still ahead in the news, Liberian government launches historic national digital health insurance scheme for vulnerable citizens. We also have guest interview and a sports update. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama is calling on African leaders to embrace smarter borrowing practices that ensure loan-funded projects generate enough returns to repay themselves. Addressing the 2025 Annual African Development Bank Conference in Abidjan, President Mahama also highlighted recent gains in Ghana's debt management, crediting the strengthening of the cedi against the dollar for a significant reduction in the country's debt burden. WADR's Nadedetiti reports.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama is urging African leaders to rethink how they take on debt. He says borrowing should be strategic and targeted. Mr. Mahama emphasized that such an approach would reduce pressure on national budgets and enhance long-term growth.
We need to put any credit that we take or any debt that we take into the most productive parts of our economy in providing infrastructure so that you can have a rate of return on debt. You must do smart borrowing, taking debt where you can create debt escrows so that the income for which you invested the credit can go to repay.
He also explained that the weakening of Ghana's currency, the cedi, has worsened the country's debt situation, given that public debt is recorded in local currency.
Increasingly, one of the push factors for the debt is the value of the local currency. Our debt continued to multiply because the cedi continued to grow weaker, and so you needed more cedis.
But he says the trend is reversing, with a recent cedi rebound helping to cut debt by nearly 150 billion cedis in 5 months. President Mahama says his administration is focused on maintaining this momentum through domestic reforms.
Fortunately, some measures we put in place have recently begun to show results, and the cedi has been strengthening. And so we've reduced our total debt over the last 5 months by almost 150 billion cedis, which is very significant.
President Mahama believes these measures will create the fiscal space needed to invest in productive sectors of the economy. For WDR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
Elsewhere in Liberia, key government agencies have signed a memorandum of understanding to provide the nation's first national digital health insurance scheme. The project, set to launch in July 2025, aims to provide subsidized health care to between 3,000 to 5,000 citizens who need it the most, leveraging the power of technology to break down barriers to access. From Monrovia, WADR's Abraham Parker reports.
The initiative promises to ensure that healthcare services are delivered securely and efficiently, reducing the potential for fraud while fostering trust among participants. During the ceremony on Tuesday, LTA acting chairperson Atula Kamara said the initiative is President Boaka's vision for a digitally transformed Liberia, where every citizen should have access to essential healthcare services.
The National Healthcare Insurance Scheme is intended to give the people in the lower segment of our society access to affordable healthcare services.
As the speakers took turns, NACO's acting managing director Atula Swari emphasized the moral imperative of the project.
By 2029, a significant segment of our population have access to affordable health care, and that sets the tone for the ongoing national discussion on the universal health coverage that is already being initiated by the Ministry of Health.
The co-payment model being introduced by the government would allow the state to shoulder the majority of costs, making it easier for citizens to seek the care they need without the burden of arthritis experiences. The National Identification Registry, led by Director General Andrew Peters, is poised to play a crucial role in verifying beneficiaries, with resolve to reinforcing the administration's commitment to transparency and accountability. Eligibility criteria will be announced in the coming weeks. For thousands of Liberians, a new chapter in their health and wellness is on the horizon, awaiting that change, which is not only possible but already underway. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview segment this afternoon focuses on the 50th anniversary of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The grand celebration is taking place in Lagos, Nigeria, the very city where the Commission's funding treaty was signed on the same day in 1975. Our guest is Mary Josan Nga, the Francophone Project Coordinator with Wadimus Network.
The regional body has gone through a lot. We can say some successes, but also some challenges in promoting democracy and good governance. So if we want to talk about ECOWAS work or ECOWAS successes in good governance and democracy, we can talk about its effort in conflict mediation and peacekeeping. ECOWAS has played a critical role in conflict resolution in Liberia, Sierra Leone, in Côte d'Ivoire. Over the years, it facilitated peace processes and helped establish democratic governance post-conflict. And the ECOWAS standby force is one of the notable success in ensuring security in times of crisis and political instability in the region. ECOWAS also has been able to promote democratic transition in Ghana, Senegal, and Sierra Leone, helping to build, stable democratic system. The protocol on the democracy and good governance is a milestone that, established or institutionalized key democratic norms like free and fair elections, respect for human rights, and norms like term limits that up to today are still outstanding, but there has been some attempts to standardize such provision.
But before we actually delve into the challenges and some of the political crisis and ECOWAS response to all of those, in brief, you've been able to touch on some of the things that ECOWAS has done and then facilitated good governance and democracy in some countries in the sub-region. And you talked about term limits. Yes, indeed, we still see that some countries in the region are not really adhering to term limits. Some are bent on power drunk. What would you say about ECOWAS' inability to respond to some of these essential things that are critical of them?
In my opinion, as a regional body, ECOWAS has certain challenges. It can be attributed to several key factors. The fact that ECOWAS is unable to respond to some of those crises. And I think one of the first reason is limited enforcement mechanism, right? Sometimes most of ECOWAS decisions and sanctions are often non-binding on member states, so it makes the compliance level low. And then we should also talk about the weak institutions, the institutions that constitute the ECOWAS Commission, the regional court, for instance, the ECOWAS Court of Justice, for instance, which starts with resolving disputes and ensuring adherence to the region's laws. I think it's almost, I don't know if I should say it's almost in existence, but let's say it faces resistance from member states. So many countries ignore the rulings, and ECOWAS lacks that authority to bring states to implement decisions, especially when it involves, like you said, domestic political affairs because of state sovereignties. ECOWAS member states, they are really reluctant to surrender their sovereignty to a regional body. And lastly, maybe we can raise some challenges related to financial and logistical constraints. The question is, for instance, how is ECOWAS sustaining itself? And ECOWAS faces significant financial constraints, which limits the ability to effectively respond to crises.
Right. Finally, as we end, ECOWAS at 50, what do you say to people who have lost faith in the regional institution?
ECOWAS has been really, really criticized, and it is normal for people from the region to lose faith. So first of all, we have to acknowledge the frustrations and the concerns. We have to understand why many people feel frustrated and disillusioned with ECOWAS. And it's completely valid to feel that way when actions of a regional body don't seem to align. In fact, organizations like Wadr and other civil society groups are really working to ensure that the voice of the people are heard. Institutions like your own institution, West Africa Democracy Radio, those are the kind of effort that we will help citizens to really understand what are the struggles for ECOWAS, help them to also know the importance of holding ECOWAS accountable. And why not, let's keep this kind of framework or this kind of space alive with dialogue and also as citizens to have constructive criticism.
Marie Josan Enga is the Francophone project coordinator with Wadr's network. Now in the world of sports, the 2024-2025 UEFA Conference League season will conclude at the Stadium Wrocław in Poland this Wednesday evening, May 28. English side Chelsea will face Spain's Real Betis in the 2025 final. Chelsea have won 2 UEFA Champions League titles, 2 UEFA Europa Leagues and 2 European Cup Championship, and could become the first team to claim all 4 major UEFA club knockout honors. Sevilla outfit Betis had never advanced beyond the last 16 of any competition before this opportunity. The 2025 UEFA Conference League winners will also gain a place in the league phase of the 2025-2026 UEFA Europa League if they have not qualified via their domestic competitions. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and to Sheikh Njai for the technical support. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is WADR's gender program 50-50 with Nadede Titi. And by 1 p.m., expect the second edition of our news in French, which is Info Chez Vous with Mustafa Jakiti. I am Augustine Curley. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via